Have you tweeted out that we're going live?
No, I couldn't get into the Twitter on my Mac for some reason. The password was saved incorrectly.
Have you tweeted out that we're going live? Okay. Can you put the link in for me?
To my channel?
Yes.
Yeah. Where do you want it? Discord?
Yeah, Discord's fine.
Not Twitch. Twitch.
All right, that does not give me a link. Oh, there we go. All right. All right, 1 second here.
The hell was that? It just crashed or something. There. Oh, I already sent it. Okay. Ugh, my mess. I look all blotchy. What the hell? My new camera's too high res. I ain't pretty enough for that.
Oh, that's such a lie. All right. Okay, I've put it on our Twitter, and then I retweeted it on my Twitter. Okay, there we go.
Okay.
All right. So, are you ready?
Whenever you wish.
Okay. In the late 19th and early 20th century, groups of performers would go around in what was known as minstrel shows. These shows would have stereotypes of African Americans. That is a topic for another day. Trust us. Those playing the roles would be white actors in what is now derided as blackface. It wasn't until the 20s that black actors were allowed to play black parts, though the stereotype roles would remain. Trust us, we will be getting back to that. Hollywood would keep this up less with black actors and more with those of other races. Native Americans in movies for decades would be played by white actors: Burt Lancaster, Audrey Hepburn, Iron Eyes Cody, just to name a few. But then you have John Wayne playing Genghis Khan, Warren Oland playing Charlie Chan, and of course the I.Y. Yanoshi played by Mickey Rooney in Breakfast at Tiffany. Now, as we move into the 20th century, we see the same things being played out. Asian actors are being pushed out of the way for white actors. This is becoming more visible in live action remakes of anime and Asian myth stories. Those in the LGBTQ community are seeing parts being given to cis heterosexual actors. The backlash was formed when the actor Scarlett Johansson took on a role of a transgender male. She has since walked away from the project, but not before causing even more problem when she listed all the other actors that had taken on this for being okay, as well as her doing it. There are many LGBTQ plus actors in Hollywood, as well as Native American actors and black actors and Asian actors in Hollywood. So why does Hollywood keep doing this? Let's talk about representation. Welcome to Heresy and Hearsay, a podcast reclaiming faith in a political context and discussion. You can follow us on Twitter at at Heresy and Hears One, or you can follow me, Barney, at Setharoth II.
And you can follow me at Nineof12. It's Nineof12 on Twitter and on Twitch.
We have a Patreon finally. It's at Patreon / Heresy and Hearsay. It's simple. It's $2 a month, and it helps keep this podcast webcast thing going.
Yay.
So let's talk about this. You posted some things about the reactions of those in other countries of Asian descent and how they viewed our reactions to anime characters being portrayed by white actors versus Asian actors.
Yeah, and I remember this really well. I remember seeing this video. I will put the link in our show notes. You'll be able to find those when you become a patron and on Patreon and eventually in our podcast. But I was watching this. It's on YouTube where after finding out, like, there was a guy who interviewed a Japanese man who interviewed to be an interview, and he was turned down, and he was told allegedly that they just weren't looking for Asian actors. So this guy went and he interviewed a bunch of Japanese people about Ghost in the Shell, and he was showing them a trailer. And it's really interesting to see their reactions, because they were like, yeah, that's great. I mean, she looks like the character. She's beautiful. She got chosen on her merit. And they're like, she looks like the character, so why not? And she's beautiful, and you can use all those eye colors if you don't use a Japanese actress. And they, like, were expressing, very commonly, one after another, these little other groups after groups of young Japanese people that, like, of course you would cast an anime character with a white woman, because that's, anime characters have big eyes, that's what they look like, and that was their aesthetic. And then, through the video, it's explained to them what whitewashing is, and the why Americans were upset about it. Well, first they asked, like, why do you think Americans are so upset? And they're like, I don't know, maybe they just wanted someone better. And then it was explained to them, and then they're like, oh well, yeah, I mean, that's discrimination, and that's wrong, and they should have cast someone who's Japanese. But it's interesting sociologically, like, the perception being quite different from social justice warriors like us projecting this motivation on Hollywood, like they're all just a bunch of racists, when I think this behavior in Hollywood, in a lot of these cases, it reflects society. It reflects what we want in our fantasy. We want these idealized things. That's why we go to movies. I don't think it's the other way around. I don't think Hollywood is dictating keeping discrimination of different sorts enforced.
Right. No.
And there's certainly been progress, like from blackface to now, right?
Right. I mean, don't get me wrong. There has been progress. But I mean, you still see, like, the Academy Awards, for example. That is a prime example where there's not a lot of representation when it comes to those. What was it, like, for 2 years there wasn't a single African American or single person of color that was up for any of the major awards?
Well, you have to also look at the process of that. I mean, the Academy Awards, they're bought into. You apply to, get it and pay money, and then you can be considered. So, like, are they supposed to enact an affirmative action policy where they prop up and seek out whatever independent films they can just to get representation in there? Is that their responsibility? Or do we just, culturally need to be making more of these movies with good representation?
I don't know about a quote unquote affirmative action, but I do think that there needs to be an educational system in the film industry when it comes to educating those individuals who may be interested in making their films. Um, because there are many people that are out there that want to make films that just haven't had the opportunity. I was watching a video not too long ago from a gentleman talking about how there was this like African American lesbian woman who went looking for this particular character that was basically made up, but it was a stereotypical mammy style character. But it was also her own journey in figuring out who she was. And it was one of those independent films that was kind of exploring what it was like to be a woman of color, but also a woman in the LGBTQ community. That was, back in the 90s. These were movies that weren't that kind of representation. You still don't see a representation as prominent. You see of lesbians, of African American lesbians. Now, you do see African American men who are portrayed in very, very stereotypical when it comes to being gay. I mean, there are so many that I could just think of stereotypical gay black men, the sassy gay friend kind of thing that is more personified as an African American man versus just being a gay man who just happened being a African American male that just happens to be gay.
I guess. I mean, if the part's written that way and the actor took it, what are you gonna do?
But
Like I felt that way about Ant-Man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what the hell? I was distracted by the Mexican comedian in there, or whatever Latino flavor he is. I'm not sure. Being like, even in his, they were playing La Cucaracha, and he had the horn, and even in the background of his whole flashback scene was like mariachi music. I'm like, holy crap, this is so stereotyped. But he's also a successful comedian in his own right who has broken into this big Hollywood film, and it's the character he portrays commonly.
Right.
So should they have not done any of that because it offended this white lady, right? Because I was shocked.
Well,
it frees it up. I mean, I do know really swishy gay guys. It's not just a stereotype.
No, I know them as well. It's just that it seems that you don't see someone like Terry Crews playing a gay guy. You know what I'm saying? I'm using Terry Crews as an example because I'm a fan of Terry Crews, but
I think
you don't
totally
see.
Would. But would that be wrong because he's not gay?
I don't know if that's the case. We can get to that in a second, but you don't see like masculine gay men, especially in African American communities. But even for a while, it was just in general. You didn't see gay men being masculine or being whatever, and you're starting to see that a bit more as it's becoming more culturally accepted, as gay men are coming out in sports. That there are gay men, there have always been gay men in sports, and it's now coming out. And I think that also kind of changed for the white gay community when Rock Hudson was found out to be gay, because he was a man's man. And for that generation, and then for him to come out and be known as gay kind of changed stereotypes in that way. And there's just not people of color that I have noticed. Now, don't get me wrong, the media I consume is not as broad as it could be, but the media that I consume, and it's in this country more than any other, that I've noticed it as well, but people of color that are also in the gay spectrum That's how I like to turn it, because using the letters all over but
I think that's another reflection of
yeah.
society too, though. Just like, I mean, I think all of these that we are even having these discussions, and things are breaking in bit by bit. We're chipping away at the societal problems with discrimination, and then it creeps into Hollywood. Like I said, I don't think it's the other way around, and there is more of a stigma in several different people of colors,
Hmm.
against gay. I mean, look at what happened with the gay marriage vote in California many years ago,
Right.
because they were able to whip up the Mexican community because they were like, no, no, we don't have any of those. It's still way more taboo in Black and Hispanic communities than in white communities, I think, because we have privilege, right? I think that's easier
Hmm.
for us to accept people that are of different gender persuasions or sexuality
Right.
preferences.
But it's also, if you look at it in a cultural sense of the United States versus, say, Britain, they had Billy, I think that was her name, in the latest Doctor Who. She was a companion, and she was a lesbian, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
That they did so, and she was also a woman of color.
Hmm.
It's and
But the new Doctor Who is so catering to both British and American audiences. I
right.
don't think that's um, saying that they're ahead of us in that.
That
I mean,
I may
look at the writers.
maybe.
So,
All right. Well, we can get into Moffat much later in our lives.
well, yeah. But that's another thing. This other article I posted in here from Screen Daily is a different. If we go back to like the Ghost in the Shell whitewashing, how actual revenues came down, and
Hmm.
how Asian audiences reacted to that going on, and it just wasn't a thing.
Hmm.
And there are things where it was considered. They were very positive about Johansson's casting in it. And there was an issue, and this is really interesting, that Hollywood movie makers had to look at, because Japanese and Chinese movie audiences are huge. For a lot of movies, they bring in more than the U.S. markets, and to cast a Chinese person for a Japanese part or a Japanese person as a Chinese person is way more problematic than just choosing somebody white. Like,
Right.
that's whitewashing in a positive sense so that everyone could enjoy the film, which was an interesting take on it from the business
N-
standpoint.
Well, right. And there has been for years animosity between the Japanese and the Chinese because of, I almost want to say, war crimes that the Japanese portrayed on the Chinese and everything else. So there's always that tension between. There's been that tension for years, especially in films and stuff like that. Uh,
So
but
it's ironic, though, that you got Hollywood here, right? The big bad guys making that conscientious decision
mhm.
to not incite that kind of turmoil against those
So,
cultures.
so when we look at that, and we look at culturally, appropriation, or not appropriation, but a culturally accepted, how the cultures that are being portrayed on film, how they feel about it. Then you look at like the LGBTQ community and how they are reacting, or feeling that there's not enough representation for them. I mean, a couple of movies that I can think off the top of my head. Unfortunately, I have not seen them. I hear they're both very good, but one, it was Jared Leto's portrayal, um, pardon me, of a transgender woman, and then there was also the Danish Girl, which was all about someone, about a transgender woman going through and trying to get sexual reassignment operation done, back in, I want to say it was the 20s, if I remember my story correctly, about the Danish Girl. I can look that up. But yeah, and both of them were up for Academy Awards, and I know Leto won the Academy Award for his portrayal of that character. But my question is there not transgender actors and actresses that can portray those roles? Or, and is it? I know that there are gay men and women who portray straight roles. The prime example is Neil Patrick Harris portraying Barney on How I Met Your Mother. Very, very heterosexual male portrayal but he is a gay man who is happily married. Another example on the other side of that, though, is you've got John Boorman playing a pansexual individual in a popular science fiction film, a TV series, two of them, in fact.
And we got David Hyde Pierce as Niles Crane,
who played a married man that kept getting divorced.
Yeah, well.
maybe that should have been her. But you have, so is it fair for that representation where we have gay actors performing straight roles? Is it fair for then the community to say, hey, there should be transgender people playing transgender roles?
I think it's perfectly fair for that to be said. I'm really glad the conversation came up and people did say, hey, you do have other options. You could not, you could cast someone trans for a trans role nowadays without the world freaking out. We've got more prominent, trans actors in the last few years than we ever have. Pose is a great show of like, holy cow, you've got plenty of, really great actors out there that can be cast. But is it weird to have to do it? Like, I'm bi. Would it be terrible for me to play a lesbian or a straight person? I just shouldn't do that to give somebody who's really actually lesbian to play the part. I mean, we can go back to 1999. Boys Don't Cry also won many awards. It's been studied as a film. It was based on a true story, but Hilary Swank was playing a trans man. And it's hard to argue it was a terrible movie, but in 1999, I mean, were there trans people out enough in the world to be pursuing acting parts in Hollywood movies, let alone there weren't roles? And now that there are roles, now we get to have this discussion, and those opportunities are becoming available.
Well, and you can even take it, but you have to look at it in a time frame situation at that point. I mean, history said that white people played black people. Does that mean that it has to always be that way? There was a time when the marginalized weren't allowed to do those roles, but now, as you said, in 1999, that's almost 20 years now, and in 20 years, there has been so much change as far as these topics are concerned, and acceptance that it seems more beneficial because the acceptance is going, that there would be more people interested in seeing a trans actor doing a trans role at this point, because you want to be, in some respects with Hollywood, they're not trendsetters or trend followers, but there are some times when they want to be the first, or they want to be, brave, quote unquote.
And then they got to listen to, the other half of the population scream and yell about how horrible that is. All those activists in Hollywood, right there, portrayed as a bunch of liberal, know-it-all people constantly in politics. Like their opinion means anything. They're just an actor. What a bunch of liberal freaks.
Yeah, they're human beings too. So that's an interesting topic that we could probably debate about later or talk about later, because it's one of those that just because you're a celebrity, do you have a right or an obligation to speak on injustices.
Well,
So
and that's why I think that fit right there, because that's what a lot of this comes down to. Like, is Hollywood responsible to make better decisions and choices in this manner? And we can hope the best. I'm glad What's Her Pickle backed out of the role. I didn't follow that very carefully, because it was just so much knee jerk, the professionally outraged flipping out about it, with very little information other than she had accepted this role. We don't know who else pursued the role,
right.
right? I mean, do we know any of that? I mean, was she responsible to say, look at the script and say, no, you probably should get, someone who can relate
Well,
better to it. When they chose Hilary Swank, and I have read about that, and Boys Don't Cry, they went through an awful, like a long time casting, tried a lot of people, but her personality fitting with that trans character's personality was how she was eventually cast.
well, and the other thing that made this problematic, at least from what I could see, is that we had is that it was her production company that was doing the movie.
Mm.
Okay, so in
Yeah.
some respects, it's like, hey, I'm the one putting the money up. I should be the star, but there were other roles that were quote unquote starring roles in that situation. The character that she was going to play, Tex, had a girlfriend at the time. That she could have easily, Scarlett Johansson could have easily played that character, played the girlfriend character. And I know that's like, well, that's not very dramatic. And I also understand where she was coming from. Scarlett Johansson is looking for an Oscar. She's looking for that kind of nomination. She's looking for a role that is to elevate her as far as her career. Honestly, that's why someone would take a role like this, because it is Oscar bait. So for her to step away from it, she realized, and I'm glad she realized that it was a mistake in some respects. But I'm also, I understand what she was trying to do as far as her own career, and it sounds a bit selfish, but I also understand that motivation, because that's I mean, if you step back and you look at those kind of roles, those roles are not going to make you a lot of money. They're not going to be box office blockbusters. But what they are prestige films. And prestige films are typically Oscar bait.
And you're assuming a lot about her motivations, but it does make sense, that
Yeah.
would be her case. I mean, she's already got a lot of money, so
Yeah.
she wants more challenging roles. From a more optimistic standpoint, or it's just goal oriented. Like, I want this award on my mantle.
Well, and that's still, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that you shouldn't go and do prestige films or whatever, and anything. I'm not deriding that or saying that's a bad thing. And yes, I am presuming a lot, but it's just one of those. If you follow the steps, because she's made a huge amount of money with Marvel, she's going to make a mint more because she's got the next Avengers movie coming out. Plus, they've already got a director and a writer for Black Widow. So she's at least going to be making one more of those movies. And
she's got to also look at, interestingly, trying to get that prestige film or whatever under her belt and get taken seriously before she ages out of all the pretty roles.
right, and that is and that's part of representation too. When you look at that, when you look at roles that are typically should be for older women, but they're given to younger women because Hollywood wants pretty women, or whatever.
Because audiences want pretty young women.
That's okay. I will admit to that.
I'm more. You're very cynical. I'm very optimistic on this whole issue. Like, I try to believe the best in everyone because that's how I think it's a better path to getting better, and then trying to tear people down for everything you don't agree with when they make a decision. Right? We can teach them to be better. That's what we want to do.
Right, and like I
that's
said,
what Jesus would do.
oh, 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 I see our roles have been reversed here today.
That had to happen eventually.
Like, as far as, I'm not upset at Scarlett Johansson and what she was trying to do. I'm not upset at anyone else and what they're trying to make a film. These stories, I feel, should be told. The question is, who should tell those stories? I think is more of the question at this point. I think I want to say the first quote unquote mainstream movie about gay or lesbians that I ever saw or it triggered that I saw. It was on HBO at the time. It was But I'm a Cheerleader. I don't know if you know that movie or not.
No, I've heard of it
Okay.
though. I think was having that discussion with maybe Abby Wessels from Diary of a Trans Woman. By the way, great podcast. Go check that out.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, Laverne Cox can't play everyone who's
No.
trans, right? But we need more of her
Well,
for these roles.
and let's take this and go the other way. Let's take it and flip it and see where this goes completely crazy and people get upset about it. A couple of years ago, they were remaking Rocky Horror Picture Show, and they, if I'm correct, they cast a trans woman in the role of Frankenfurter.
Mm-hmm.
And the internet on both sides, left and right, lost their minds. More for the fact that they were going to remake it anyways, but also for the fact that there was a trans woman playing Frankenfurter, and I'm like, kind of, sort of makes sense in a way.
Well, I mean, I was just like, that was another like, oh no, the professionally outraged drive me crazy because seriously, we're not even talking about gender issues with Rocky Horror Picture. He was an alien species of transvestite. Like that was their race. Like it was. I would do. Is it going to be a race issue? Like that's it. And it's a comedy, and it's like, holy shit, calm down. I mean, I might have been perturbed about it being a remake, but I thought that was hypocritical too. I was Rocky Horror Cast for years. It's on the stage. It's not just even the movie. You can't point to the movie as canon. I mean, you could try, but given I got up every week and played whatever character needed to be filled in, right in front of the actors, like we ever respected them, right?
Right, but yeah.
Oh, they're gonna remake it. Oh no, they're taking my college years away, my memories. Get over yourself. Like you were doing that. There were men and women that played Frankie every week.
Actually, I can be the first person to say I hate going to the theater to see Rocky Horror Picture Show. I can't stand it. I am one of these people that want to see the movie because I enjoy the movie. I don't want to see a bunch of people on stage being silly.
My husband doesn't like it either way. We've tried to watch it on TV. He thinks it's stupid. I said, "Oh, you got to experience it." We saw a live performance. No, he just doesn't like it at all.
I actually saw the play performance, which is interesting, but and I actually prefer people aren't throwing toilet paper at me. That's just me. I'm allowed to say that. But yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. Is that it was part of it was the remake, but part of it was also the fact that it was a trans woman. And even some of it was race as well, which was ridiculous at that point. Because I had seen wonderful people who did, I respect those people that do it and do it professionally, as far as that kind of thing. And I've seen wonderful African Americans, wonderful Asian Americans, all the different races perform Frankie and perform all the other roles. So I had no problems with that.
So are you gonna? I know I saw you were hating on the Titans trailer. Is any part of that Starfire's black now?
No, not at all. I'm
okay. So it's okay to do it the other way around.
Eh,
Well, yeah, because we're privileged, but she was also an alien. She's kind of orange.
yeah, it's that's why it really doesn't bother me any. It's what's interesting is if you look, I'm not completely sure because I could look, but it looks like Beast Boy is Asian, which how he is drawn and how he is portrayed in some respects, kind of I can kind of see that. No, I'm hating on it because Robin's using a gun, and that just is like a bunch of no. That's a whole nother, but that's a whole nother topic. But no, as far as Starfire being African American, no, I have no problems with that. I follow. I
I'm
follow
curious about
stuff.
Beast Boy now, because he's green.
Yeah, but his how his eyes have always been drawn. It's been drawn that it seems very Asian in some respects. So I have no problem with that either. I follow several cosplayers that are of people of color that do amazing costumes, and I don't have a problem with that. You know, if they had cast an African American woman to play an Amazon, I'd have been okay with that. You know, Greeks are typically not of that descent. You don't know because they had separated themselves from the Greeks as far as the myth is concerned. So they could have, you know, become African American, become African, or become dark skinned. So I wouldn't have had a problem with that. I don't have a problem with the flip because they don't have privilege. We
Right,
have
right.
we the
I
white
agree, yeah.
males have privilege, and white females have less privilege, but still have privilege. So when you look at that, you know, we are coming and we're taking stories away from people that don't have privilege that should be able to tell their own stories, and we should support that. You know, my biggest fear is that the movie is going to that movie that we're talking about with Scarlett Johansson, that movie is going to crumble because she doesn't get to play the lead role. Her production company is going to pull their money from it, and therefore the movie's going to fall. And I don't know if that's I haven't seen anything saying that's the case so far, but I know she has stepped away from the role. I just hope that her production company doesn't step away from the project. You see what I'm saying? We should support that, but we should support a trans person being in that role. We should support, gay people being in the role because we have that privilege. We should be a support system, not their voices.
I agree with that ideal, and I believe that we are getting there. I just want these conversations to be civil and not like screaming blackface or whitewash every time it happens. It's like the yelling Hitler, right?
Right, right.
I don't think that's as productive as the kind of conversation, we're having. We want it to stop. Voices were heard. Actions are being taken. Now, like you said, hopefully the movie goes forward, because there's not enough of them. But they have been being done for a while.
Right, and it's like I think it was Sean Penn who won an Academy Award or was up for an Academy Award for playing Milk, which was
Yeah.
a gay man in San Francisco in what 69, 70, something like that. My history is off when it comes to modern history, but and he was killed because partly because of his heterosexuality. I mean, his homosexuality. Yeah, that would be a change. But yeah, so it was. So and at the time, that's fine. And gay men or gay women playing gay roles are wonderful, but it's not. Where does that line draw? Where can we say that if it's a gay male role or a gay female role or a bisexual role, do we always have to have a bisexual person play that role? Do we always have to have a gay man or a gay woman play that role? Do we have
I mean,
if
do we
if
have to like throw out all of Rock Hudson's work because he wasn't actually, this sexy straight dude in the end, or hetero dude? It,
and again,
no,
but
it's
that comes
separate. They're acting, but I do think we're running into this with this particular Scarlett Johansson thing because there was a kerfuffle before about the anime parts, and because I think the trans issue in particular is more complicated. Like in the whole LGBTQIA spectrum, um, can we please start using saga, everyone? Um, but there are many groups in the activist communities that I am part of and in politics where they just want trans folks want their own damn group because so many of the other more common letters used are referring to sexuality and not to gender. It's an entirely different thing. And as there's more societal understanding of gender fluidity and the valid physiological issue that this is, we're gonna that's where we'll see more of these stories being made, and those kind of decisions are going to have to be made. So it's a good opportunity to talk about this, but it's more complicated for trans folks. Like, I didn't see the Asian thing as whitewashing. I was watching Asians their response to it being like, what are you even talking about, until it was explained to them. So that didn't seem very genuine. But with the trans issue, my friends have been like, yeah, it's just like blackface because you have available people. I totally can see.
Right. So should we also separate the two, where it's, like I said, do every time there's a gay part or a lesbian part or a bisexual part or a trans part, should we only have those individuals who are, a gay actor can only play a gay role?
I have such a hard time. Like, I've been trying to wrap my head about that, and I can't, because I'm like, I'm pan, really. Plumbing doesn't matter in my attraction to someone. It just doesn't, it's not my first consideration. It doesn't, so it's hard, and I've done acting, on stage. So it seems wildly unfair and weird that would have to be a consideration. Like, that's a kind of discrimination. Like, am I going to have to put it on my resume that, I'm pansexual and my relationship history to prove it in order to take a role that I think is great and I'd be really good at? That seems screwed up. But right. I can only speak from a place of privilege, being a white woman.
Right, and I mean, and that's one of those questions. Is like, and we go back to Neil Patrick Harris. How many roles have he played? Let's not count Doogie Howser, but how many roles has he played as a man that he played a gay man versus a straight man? I can't think of any role off the top of my head where he has played a gay man.
But how fantastic is it as a story, in like his character Barney and How I Met Your Mother, right? That he got to do that disgusting parody of a chauvinist pig is wonderful. I mean,
it absolutely is wonderful.
There might be a straight man who thought he was awesome that would have been really mad when he came out, right? Or when they found out.
Right. But it's on the same thing, there's a representation. It's like, I'm trying to think. I don't know, and maybe you could answer this. I don't know if either of the actors in Will and Grace that play gay men are gay. I don't know that. I don't know if they are or aren't.
Oh, I think one is, one isn't, but I might be misremembering. Scott would know. My gay husband's not here. I can text him while we talk.
Or like, was the African American guy who played Lafayette, was he gay? Do they? That's what I'm saying. Do they have to have? Do they need to be of the and I use the term spectrum because I'm an ally, and there's a lot of letters, and we're going to discuss saga and stuff like that next week. I hope that's going to be our topic, is about homosexuality and understanding certain things. And I'm hoping to get a bit of an education, because there are certain terms and certain understandings that I don't get. But we also going to talk about the overall letter situation as well, because we both have opinions about the letter situation. So that being said, but on the spectrum, do they have to be on the spectrum to play those kind of roles, or is it a formal whitewashing for for a straight man to play a gay role, or is it not that case because it's a different situation,
Yeah.
and no, we don't have answers for that. We try to give insightful commentary about the society around us, but unfortunately we're not going to have all the answers, because some of these are going to be questions that will come up over and over again, and we don't know. It's just like, we do know in some respects that African Americans should play African Americans, Native Americans should play Native Americans. We know that, but then we get into the Asian thing. Now, if it is a Asian role, yes, it should be an Asian, but then you go into anime. Some of them are quote unquote Asian characters because it comes from an Asian country, but how they're designed and everything, they're not Asian looking. So that is a question that needs to be asked as well. Where's that line on, depending on the cultural and the source material? If someone wants to do a live action Sailor Moon, should all the characters be Asian?
Yeah, the blonde hair, blue eyed Asians are everywhere.
But they did. But here's the thing: over in Japan, they did do a live action television show of Sailor Moon, and they worked it out that her hair color change was part of the magical transformation.
Okay, I find that seems a little offensive. Like,
no,
my superpower is getting white. Whoa, man, that's not all right. I mean, I'm sure they didn't do it that way, but that was the first way it came to my head. I was like, no.
Yeah, but that's what they did. Is that all the girls were naturally Japanese looking until they transformed, and then when they transformed, they got on wigs. Except for Ray, who is Sailor Mars. I'm sorry, I'm a huge Sailor Moon fan, so we're going Ray, who is Sailor Mars, who is also the priestess, who is traditionally Japanese, anyways. And that would be my thing. Let's say they do an American version of this, and they do have a blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl, and they do have a blue-haired girl. I would be offended if the character who is a priestess is also white, because that is a traditional Japanese character. But she also has big eyes too. So you see what I'm saying? You go, well, she has the big eyes, but she's not but that they don't have priestesses. We don't have a lot of white priestesses here for the show. And I'm sorry, I'm mispronouncing the religion. But their religion, the Shohin temples and stuff like that, you don't have white women doing the priestess role. It's Japanese women that's doing it. So where's my line drawn? I know that Sailor Moon is Japanese as far as the show is concerned. Her first and last name are Japanese, but when they bring it to America, how offended would I be if it's a white woman? Even I have that question. It's like, I understand on one hand, and then on the other, I get that. And I was not superly upset about Ghost in the Shell as far as the characterization is concerned. I was upset about the fact of how her brain was materializing her to look like a white woman, because she was actually a Japanese girl. Oh, I'm sorry, spoilers. But the spoiler, which is completely different than in the movie. And the anime, it's not like that. But that was part of it is that she was projecting herself to look like Scarlett Johansson, though she was though they showed pictures of her brain before it was taken out of her head and put into the cyborg, and she was traditionally a Japanese woman.
Yeah, I was more offended by Black Widow becoming blonde. That looked freaking terrible.
I've
Um,
still not seen the movie.
just bad hair. Just bad hair. Movie's
Maybe
fine.
she.
Um, no spoilers. Yeah, maybe she's got another role. Now, here's another thing. Do we think she's stupid? Or do we think maybe she did this on purpose? I didn't realize it was her production company, as you mentioned. And it's entirely possible with that potential level of insight and control, and because she specifically has been a target of this kind of negative, whitewashing publicity in roles she's taken in the past, that this might have been a stunt to do something socially responsible by bringing this argument into the public forum. Because I would do that shit. I would throw myself under the bus to get it talked about, and it might get more backers for this movie and be able to cast, and then they will have no choice at this point because of public pressure to cast a trans person.
I can see that, and also to add further depth to this, the same director that directed Ghost in the Shell was also going to be directing this movie that she was doing. So it's like this trifecta of, it's her doing another role that's controversial and having the same director that was that was directing the first role that came out controversial. I don't know if she's doing it. You can take it one of two ways. You can either take it your way, which is, you know what? I know this is going to cause controversy. This will get people interested if I back out of the role, and then we can get, if I promise that I'll stay, my production company will still stay, and we'll get some back, and I promise that we get a transgender person to play the character, and then we could get more backers because I'm still a part of the production, and everything. My name will still be there, and then at that point, you look at could that be? That's the case. The other case is that she really wasn't paying attention. She really wasn't thinking it was going to be a bad thing, because, and to her defense, she does have credible points to it. She has other people in the last 5 years who has played roles of transgender characters, from, like I said, the Danish girl, the Jared Leto's character, and I want to say it's the Texas Buying Company or something like that. I can't remember exactly the name of it, but it also starred Matthew McConaughey in it as well. But there's been a couple others like that, and there have been prestige films. They have been films that are Oscar bait. But so she kind of sort of had a precedent. So I can understand where she might have been blinded,
oblivious to
by that.
what she was doing. Yeah.
Well, and again, and her tweet is that she just basically tweeted the people that have been in it said, ask these people about playing a trans role.
Right. She got defensive, which
she did.
Not the best reaction to have.
Right. But again, I can understand where she's coming from, because it's like, because here's the other point: all the other roles that I've just played by men, and she's a woman. So that adds yet another layer to it. Is our outrage because she is a woman playing a trans man, or that she is, not trans herself, or is it the fact that we're okay with men playing trans women, but we're not okay with a woman playing a trans man that are not?
Yeah, and you know what? That's another reason that when it's as trans people are becoming more and more visible and accepted in society, and it is way more complicated, that in the history of the transgender community, there's a lot of can you pass stuff,
Right.
that is ugly, just ugly.
Well,
Because it shouldn't matter now that we're understanding gender identity more and more. But it is early. I mean, depending when this story they're portraying took place, maybe that's relevant to it, and they really need somebody who could just unquestionably pass or something, which is awful in its own right, but it's another complicated thing. It'd be like
well,
trying to make a movie about the history of colored folks and you know passing themselves off as white. That would be a
well,
tremendous casting nightmare.
well, but the thing is she was playing a trans man, so
Mm.
that means that she was transition. If I am correct in my understanding, so forgive me if I'm not. But she was transitioning to a man. This is Scarlett Johansson we're talking about here. That's a lot of makeup. You see what I'm saying? Because Scarlett Johansson is very much woman. She's very feminine.
Um, I don't, I guess necessarily agree with that, but I just kind of look at people differently. I mean, because she plays all these sexy roles and how she's dressed has a lot to do with it. But I mean,
Hmm.
she's got like a very square jawline and stuff where she, I think, if you take off her makeup, would tend toward androgyny fairly easily.
I'm pulling up a picture because I'm like, okay, I don't see what you see, but that I can understand.
I mean, in the same way that like David Hyde Pierce, I mean, was Niles Crane was obviously very effeminate, but like so super hot, and like Neil Patrick Harris, he's like so super hot. I mean, think about it. I mean, there's some androgyny to both of them, right?
Well,
I see
right.
kind of the same thing in her, but I don't sexualize the same way. So I guess I don't know. Maybe my boundaries are all blurred when I look at people.
No, I get that. I really do. So the name of the movie, by the way, is Rub and Tug. Is about Tex Gill. So let me pull up some information about Tex Gill here. Let's see. When they Dante Tuxgill was Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Let's see. He was. I'm looking at a picture of Tex here, and no, that's just. Let me see if I can.
Mm.
Yeah, there's no way. Hold on a second. Sorry. I won't put it in
So
for
she
those
doesn't
who.
look anything like him. So all right.
I'm going to put it in our little uh, thing so you can kind of take a look. That's tech skill for you.
Okay. Well, I don't know what age this story took place at either, because that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I mean, and that's part of it. There, I know that in this that Tex Gill died in 2003. So let me see if I can find some more information about Tex Gill. But anyways, that being said, it's just um, because it doesn't say exactly when, but it does say that that is definitely a male look to me, and maybe I'm wrong. There are people that we know that would look more like Tex than Scarlett without a lot of makeup. That's I think that's the big thing that I'm just seeing here. And I know we're rambling, and I apologize, but it was one of those points. It's like, could she have pulled off the role? And it's like, I'm sure she can. She's a phenomenal actress. I'd never thought she couldn't pull off the role. But what I did think is that, she would not have that. I don't think she could pull the role off correctly, if you know what I'm saying.
we'll never know. But
Maybe
it's
not.
better for someone else to play it anyway. I
I
think
think
we can
so.
agree on that.
We can. But in general, and like I said, there are some questions that have come up. That you guys that are watching and listening, definitely let us know what your opinion on. Should only gay and lesbian actors play those roles, or is it okay for straight uh, individuals to play those roles? Should asexual individuals only play asexuals, and so on and so forth? What's your take on that? Because we don't have the answers. There's not a lot. There's not, because this is kind of new ground for the world right now, as far as is concerned. But it is about. It is about.
I'm
Yeah.
not interrupting you. I'm just saying.
No.
Leave
No.
that for later.
But
But please
that,
give us your feedback. We're trying to have discussions.
yes. And we just found out that the movie may not happen at all, because it seems she's walking
Oh, and that's
completely
not why I
into.
sent that. I sent that because of the image. Because
Oh, okay.
I'm surprised you can't see any androgyny there. Um, regardless, we got to get your religion into this, Barney. Is it bearing false witness? Is it a sin to portray a role with which you don't identify? Or
See that?
does that go to like an institutionalized, that's where you can put it on Hollywood, not the person? Like blame the sinner, not I don't know.
Right. Well, and we can look back to, let's look back right after blackface kind of went away and African Americans were taking those roles. They were still taking the exact same roles that were being played in the minstrel shows. For years, they played the same roles. All you have to do is look at, like, um, the Song of the South movie from Disney that they will never release again, or Gone with the Wind. Those were African Americans playing those kind of roles still.
Now there were interesting things. So my first shock at blackface story, because I didn't have any exposure to it, was one night, late night. I like to watch old black and white movies and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been in Babes in Arms in high school,
Right.
and I had never seen the movie.
Oh,
And that, of course, the whole minstrel show scene was not in. I don't know if it wasn't in the Broadway production or if it was pulled or whatever. I know it wasn't in my script, but seeing Judy Garland and Mickey Rooney in blackface. But it also was like an historical representation of a minstrel show, and the song they were singing, like it was an appropriation of like a black song. We want to put it in our show, but we can't have any black people in the show, right? And I was like, holy shit, Judy Garland and Mickey Rooney did this in 1939.
mm-hmm.
And I just had all kinds of feels, and I didn't know what to do about it. Like, I didn't know.
I think
Because it was like that movie was told of a previous time, and it was just the way things were happening when that was being portrayed. Like, it was part of the story, right? I don't know. It was very confusing to come across and not know that I had been a part of this show.
right. And when you look, here's how I can, as far as that's concerned. Let's say there was a movie made today where they were going to discuss minstrel shows and the effect that it had on the culture. Okay. We, as a culture, would have to look at that and see people in blackface. And I think, because it would be important, because it would be a historical point, it'd be historical accuracy. It's not the same as, let's say, Roseanne decides that she's going to change her show, and all the actors go into blackface, but still do comedy. You see what I'm saying? It's two totally different things. One is a historical, it's important kind of movie discussing this kind of stuff, and yeah, there can be some levity in it as well, but versus a white actress or a white actor doing blackface and then going on stage and just doing their normal show. That's so. As far as bearing false witness, it's hard to say because there were laws that wouldn't allow African Americans to perform to begin with, or in the same places as white people when these shows were really popular and everything. Mm-hmm. So there is some of that. Some of it was bearing false witness, yes, but it was on a racial side, and that's something we'll have to discuss at another date. But what you have to look at is you have to look at what that does to an individual who sees that. And are you loving that person as your neighbor because you are portraying a role that they should be portraying, or are you taking food from someone's mouth that could work that job? That's not. See, there are African American actors that need work. There are Asian actors that need work. BD Wong cannot be the only Asian American actor doing all the technical roles or all the smart Asian roles for older Asian men. Do them, but he's in all of them that I've seen lately.
Well, there's a whole bigger mess with casting and how films get made too that needs to be expanded.
Well, and that's the other thing. Someone brought up, without Scarlett Johansson's name, they wouldn't be able to get it published or get the movies made. It's like, so have her in a different role. She does not have to be the lead. She can get as best supporting actress. That's perfectly fine. You don't have to be Meryl Streep and win all the awards all the time. I like Meryl Streep. I'm just saying she wins a lot of awards. Except for her portrayal in Mamma Mia, which I'm grateful for.
And she won enough that now she's allowed to get old and still work.
Yeah, and again, that's also a cultural thing because you still see a lot of older women in like British shows that you don't see, that would not maybe have that role in American shows. And I don't know. It's one of those things where women's portrayals is also part of this as well in some respects. I'm not saying that you see a bunch of men in drag, portraying women, but what I am saying is that how those portrayals are done can be just as painful and everything. I'm a professional wrestler lover. I love watching professional wrestling, and the amount of sexism, racism is sometimes I just go, I am feeling physically ill watching this because you are going to extremes I have never thought. And it goes the other way. There is a Samoan wrestler out there that they're trying to make popular. And one of the first things they did when they decided they were going to make him popular is they forced him to wear contacts to hide his natural brown eyes to make him look more to pass.
Well, and that's something like we were talking about with more anime movies. If they were gonna cast Japanese folks, and I mean, there are parts of a lot of manga and things that the color of their eyes is actually super relevant. Mm-hmm. So what are they gonna do?
Right. Well, and it's one of those. It's like a movie I want to see, but I'm afraid to see because I'm a huge fan of the manga series. Is Battle Angel Alita. Not only did they have made it basically a white cast, which is fine if you look at the dystopia that they're in and everything. It's not set in Japan per se, so it can be from anywhere. So it's one of those. it's like Sailor Moon versus this. Sailor Moon's set in Japan. It's Japanese girls. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Versus this, it's set not in Japan. It's set someplace else.
Right.
But not only did they take a white girl to play, a white young lady to play this role, but they also augmented her eyes even more.
Right.
Here's the thing. If they could do that...
Go ahead.
I was going to say, if they could do that with her, why can't they do that with Asian actors?
Yeah, they can. I'm looking, because I sent you that article to get you the picture, but I really like... I see that she was criticized, and you were talking about Scarlett Johansson saying, well, these other guys did it. And she specifically mentioned Jeffrey Tambor in Transparent, and that hit me, and I wanted to talk about that because Transparent was... I love that show. It's an amazing show. It really accurately portrayed the history of that age of transgender person enough that, because it reminded me of the stories that my friend Janice tells me. Like, it was like, holy crap, this is so like just like what she has told me it's been like for her in the same time period. And when he won an award for that role, he broke down crying. He is such a trans advocate now. Like, playing the role has made him understand and empathize with the community. And I'm sorry she had to get like beat up for that, like she was just being a brat, because I do think it's kind of not fair, because he was praised.
Right, and again, it goes to, is it just because she's a woman wanting to portray this role versus all these men? And of course, the actor Jeffrey Tambor, of course, you know what's recently happened with him, as far as what we discussed in our last episode, the Me Too movement.
No, I didn't know that. Damn it!
Yes.
Another one bites the dust.
Yeah, he is no longer part of Transparent.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So, yeah. I'm sorry. Maybe we should... Wow.
It's such a good show. Oh my god.
Yeah. There's
everybody has their things. Why are there gonna be so many bad things?
Yeah. Look at the age we
now
live
I have to
in.
get out my stress brain.
Okay. I'm sorry. So that said, let's move on.
You couldn't have let an angry emailer tell me that? Jeez. All right. So yeah, let's moving on. I think we've covered as much as we can.
I'm your friend. I should let you know this, and so that at least it's from someone who cares.
Well, it's another thing I'm behind on. Now I don't have to catch up. So.
Again, that's another thing. Can you separate the art from the artist?
Mm.
Just because there's sexual harassment charges up doesn't mean that he's still not an advocate for transgendered people. See?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I could probably get over it. I mean, you and I know someone who was recently torn down by somebody else I know when they did a great thing because of something bad they had done before. Like, okay, doing it wrong. I think that's doing it wrong. You can't take away something good someone did. People might very well hate the fact that I support somebody I support, or whatever skeleton I might have in my closet, and it doesn't ruin the content of everything I've created.
No, it doesn't. No, and I understand that. But it's you still have to look at that. But getting back to representation,
Yes.
no, that's fine. But again, it comes back to he was lauded. Leto got an award, and he's scummy too. Let's be fair. He's not. He was sending used condoms and dead rats to. What is her name? You know her. The one. the one who played Harley Quinn.
Oh, I forget her name.
Margot
Something.
Yeah. Anyways, because he was trying to stay in character, you know.
Yeah, that was weird.
So, he's a creeper too, and yet he got an Academy Award for playing a transgender woman as well. I don't think I've heard anything from the actor who played the Danish Girl. I haven't heard anything bad about him, so that's a plus.
I love Robert Downey Jr., and he's been a degenerate drug addict, and he's done blackface.
Oh God, he's.
Yeah, I know. I was going to bring it up because that one's really weird.
That's one of those you go.
It counts. It was though. I've only seen part of that movie, but I was like, I don't know. I think holy shit, it is because it's also stereotyping over the top bad. But
yeah, but is it that? But is it okay because it is trying? Because it's trying to be that way, because it's trying to be stereotype over the top, because the whole movie is stereotype over the top, that it's
comedy is how we bring these things up, right? Comedy is often the best way to bring it up.
And it's also being a commentary on that kind of stuff. Exactly. So you see so it's one of those, it's like, if it's done in a certain way, is it okay? Is it, could someone play a Charlie Chan kind of slant, doing the whole thing but doing it in a commentary, is that okay? Versus them doing it as serious,
Right.
There are.
We had a case here a couple of years ago locally where a woman was running for the school board, and pictures turned up of her whole body changing her color to dress as, I think, Serena Williams or somebody for Halloween. No. No,
I'm just sitting.
At that point, you're costuming, you're cosplaying. Just own it, transform it. I think what she did was screwed up, but she couldn't even fathom. She didn't understand. Well, I just admired her and wanted to do that, and dress up as her. Well, yeah, but you can't appropriate quite that hard.
No. No, you. It's like every year the same costume makes me upset as a sexy Pocahontas costume, and it has red makeup in it.
Oh, okay.
Every year that comes out, and there are people that buy it every year. Wouldn't be made if people didn't buy it, but I'm going, really?
Maybe they don't use the makeup.
I'm sure the person who I'm sure there are many people who buy the costume to be a sexy Native American without putting on the red makeup, and it'll be okay. It won't be. It's still appropriation.
A little stereotype, right? But I mean, no. See, I have that issue because, all right, I'm going to argue against that in some ways, because when your little girl is getting strong female characters in an animated film made for children, and then they're really excited and they go around singing the songs and they want to dress up like them, I think that's okay. I think you should teach the lesson, and they shouldn't run around going woo 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 or any stupid shit like that. But I don't think it's bad to indulge the fantasy as long as you're incorporating the lessons.
No, and I agree with you on that as far as the little girl. But I didn't say little girl. I said sexy Pocahontas costume.
Right, but you can't blanket all of it.
No, you can't. Like I said, it's okay for. I mean, when I was growing up, we played cowboys and Indians. Most of the time, the Indians won because we were bigger. But we played cowboys and Indians, and we would do the whole woo 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 thing because that's what we were brought up with as children. But as we grow up, the whole statement: when you're a child, you put up childish things. Stereotypes like that is a childish thing. You put them up because you've learned that that's not the case. is how I see that.
But I love seeing, I don't know.
And I don't have a problem with I I do have a problem with the movie Pocahontas, but that's because they turned her into like a sexy girl, and that just made my head hurt. But the historical Pocahontas doesn't really do anything either because it's just as horrible. But I understand watching the movie, getting inspiration from the movie. I understand Brave or Morlan.
Smart.
Well, they're growing up, they're watching intelligent young women prove themselves to be intelligent young women, and I'm okay with it. In fact, just recently, and this is a tangent, but I'll get back to it in a second, is there's doing this Barbie blog or vlog that she does every couple of days.
It's awesome.
I know. I watched one, and it was about depression, and I'm going, I don't, or about bullying, and about the one she did. I'm going, this is not the Barbie I grew up with. I'm grateful it's not the Barbie I grew up.
It is terrific. I've been meaning to. I was gonna bring it up on a Grills podcast, but then I think I missed that one. But holy crap! The Barbie vlog. I'm so happy that it's happening.
You should still bring it up with the Grills. Even tangent or something, because I love Okay, all secrets aside, I was on the Geek Grills, which is a 90212's other podcast several years ago, a couple of years ago. And that's what got me thinking about doing this podcast, as well as a couple of other video people that I watch. So, I will always have a strong connection with the Geek Girls and support them. So, if you see if you see her posting stuff, 9of12 posting stuff, watch the Geek Girl stuff too. It's really good. And it's very, very geeky. And occasionally we'll geek out here because we're both geeks. So it's just one of those things.
Yeah. Such nerd much wow.
But, we got San Diego. Comic-Con this weekend and this week, so there's going to be a lot of stuff coming out this week, and so it'll be interesting to see representation in that. But let's also talk about representation in video games. And one of the big ones that came out, I don't know if you saw it or not. Actually, you did. Was the Last of Us trailer that they had with the gameplay. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about that representation as far as Ellie being lesbian? Or at least bisexual?
Good. And they put it front and center in the big announcement trailer. Good on them.
And to take this to a perspective, because and we're talking about not only a lesbian woman, or at least bisexual woman. We don't know if she likes boys too. Trailer, and also the DLC from the original game where she fell in love with an African American girl. So, but they were young, and it was 12, and it was a little different. They were exploring sexuality. So it wasn't. You weren't sure of it. She's much older. She's, I think, 18 in this. So it's a little more clear of what she feels. So I think this is a good representation. But, you look at when that game came out, there were a couple other games that also came out at the same time. One of my personal favorite games has always been BioShock Infinite. If you look at the cover of BioShock Infinite, the game itself has two protagonists in it. You're playing the main protagonist, but you're also dealing with the story of Elizabeth. It's her story. You're just involved in it. But the game, the cartridge, or I'm sorry, the art on the cover is just of the male protagonist. And the reason for that is because the gaming studio back then, and I think this is 2008 or 2013 or something like that, the gaming studio didn't want to put a woman on the cover because they say that women do not sell in the video game community. And I can give another example of where they get this idea from. during E3, they did a game trailer for Gears of War 5. Gears of War 5 is now got a female protagonist as the lead, and every comment I saw about that was about how it was, girls of war or girling of war or stuff like that, and basically degrading the fact that they were going to have a woman as a female. The Battlefield 5, where it had a female on the cover and females in the roles of the game, of playing in the game, where you could play a female for the first time in a Battlefield game. Here's the thing, the man boys got very upset about that.
Oh, yeah.
The thing is that you're in France, and there were a lot of female French fighters. There were also a lot of Irish freedom fighters that came over from Ireland that were. And so they're claiming it wasn't historically accurate. It's extremely historically accurate. There's just that it was whitewashed or man-washed away how integral women were as far as winning the World War II.
Right.
So again, it goes into representation. Now, you can't tell if it's an African American or a white person or gay or straight, but you're still looking at representation of man, woman, and how there's still that dynamic of where there's not a lot, where when representation of a woman comes to be, gets found out, that there's a lot of men that get upset about it. Samus from the Metroid series, they had changed her from the silent protagonist who could kick ass to this sexy blonde running around in a skin-tight suit because the boys asked for it and demanded it. So there is a representation problem in video games. There's a representation problem in films for women as well. Older
some
women
companies are better at it than others.
Don't get me wrong, they are, but,
Especially when they started to actually get demographics and realize how much money women spend on games.
well, yeah, and then you also, but then you look at Blizzard. Blizzard has many heavy, powerful women protagonists who really should wear something to cover their belly buttons. But other than that, is very strong protagonist women in their games. In fact, now they have in Overwatch, they have gay characters in Overwatch.
Not autistic character.
Yeah. And so they do have, they are more expansive as far as that's concerned. But then you look at the comic books, and I know comic books are hard, but there was it took how many years? Let's start from Superman, the Christopher Reeve movie, which was in 1978, 79. To 2015 is when the Wonder Woman came out. That long for Wonder Woman, who is known by women all over the world and as Wonder Woman, it took them that long to finally put out a Wonder Woman movie.
Yeah.
How many Batman movies were made? How many Superman movies have been made? And it's Margot Robbie that played Harley Quinn.
Right.
Now I remember. But yeah, so you look at that, and representation is extremely important because it enriches all of our lives as human beings to understand other people's stories, because every human being has a story which is their own, but they may have more stories, and those stories should be told and should be heard. And
we're getting there, man. Hidden Figures was fucking amazing.
Yes. See, that's a perfect example where we're finally and none of those women were up for a candidate. See what I'm saying? It's just.
I think they didn't apply, but that's another thing.
That may be the case.
It's a
So,
stupid
do you have
process.
any? It is. So, do you have any final thoughts on this?
No, I think we covered an awful lot, even more than I thought we would.
Okay.
And I have a headache.
Uh, is it because of what you found out?
No, it couldn't have stressed me out that much.
All right. So let's do our carrots and sticks. Do you want to do carrots or sticks today?
Oh, they got nominated, so they definitely did apply. I don't care. Well, I guess I'll do carrot because I sent you that, right? Like on Facebook. There are these churches, although you didn't put the name of the church.
I couldn't find the post. That's why I couldn't. I
Okay.
didn't.
I'll try to find the link for those of us that become patrons and go to YouTube and stuff where we can post those things. But there is a church. The church is putting fences up like we are caging immigrants in and children and putting their nativity displays in there to remind folks that Mary and Joseph were also immigrants. Also, David Hogg, this young man from Parkland, Florida, he was a victim of that shooting, and he has been doing amazing work trying to make the nation safer. I saw a really great story where somebody filmed, and then he was being interviewed about it, where he ran into some basically gun advocate, protesters, but they had this amazingly civil conversation and saw each other's points and shook hands. And what a good, mature young man. And I think they're actually going to be able to make, some of these changes. They're working on very specific regulations, gun regulation laws.
Hmm. That is very true, and people watch this kid, this young man. He's going to be a powerful person in politics in the future. I honestly believe that.
If that's what he
Just
chooses to do.
I think he's gotten the.
He's studying. He said what he was studying in the interview. I don't know.
I I think he's probably going to end up going there as far as politics because he's taking a year off from school and he's doing all these trips around and registering people to vote.
Somebody will recruit him to run.
Oh yeah.
I would.
So, sticks, first off, goes to Mr. Trump and his visit to the EU, basically making enemies wherever he goes. You know, there's 200,000 people in England protesting the guy who we voted for. You know, it's like, well, okay, me and 9 of 12 didn't vote for him, but you know what I'm saying.
Never.
Yeah. So, and our glorious city that we are near has been selected as the city that's going to have the convention this in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So probably expect to see some live streams of us protesting and possibly getting arrested.
We'll see.
Yeah, at least protesting. At least I'll be out there.
You go ahead. The protesters. I was a delegate at the Democratic National Convention here, and I think it would be incredibly hypocritical to try to interfere with their process. But
They tried to interfere with ours, so I think it's only fair.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, turnabout is fair play. Are you supposed to turn the other cheek? Man, a lot of role reversal today.
Yeah, I am turning the other cheek. I'm protesting, which is okay. I'm not trying to actually interrupt. I'm just trying to make.
I will ask you not to block roads. I know that can be a very effective form of protest, but poor Janice. There are people with like disabilities and stuff that couldn't get back to our hotels and stuff.
No. I would never do that. I never cause any pain. I just want people to listen. You know, in my shouty way. Also, you know, though he was making with everybody else in the EU, you know, saying that the biggest threat, he did embrace Russia and gave him a big hug, you know, because he loves his Putin bear.
So weird.
I know. As
He
we
called
are
Europe our foes. England, like, literally use the word foes.
And me and September are of the age group where we remember, you know, the Cold War, and it's just really weird for us to see us, embrace Russia, who is ran by a former KGB agent, the bad guys in all of the Bond movies, versus you know pushing away
Rocky.
all, yeah.
It was even in sports. I mean, hockey, man, miracle on ice. Anyway,
You know, and embracing them and not embracing the EU. Also, Trump's pick for the Supreme Court, obviously, is though there has not been any, like, he's not made any rulings on abortions per se. Samantha Bee is absolutely terrified that Roe v. Wade is going away, and I tend to trust her journalistic gut on that situation.
he's a
If he's,
comedian. Okay. You do
I
realize that, right?
I do, but I also know she's very deep into politics. I know you don't think it's going to happen, but I don't know. If it's not
I mean, that was
over,
the litmus test he used, obviously. So it could, but boy, it's going to have a domino effect.
I know. So now you can follow us on Twitter at Heresy and Here's One, or you can follow me at Reverend Barney. I'm Rev Barney, and you can follow me at Seth Roth II.
And you can find me, September, at Nineof12 on Twitter and on Twitch.
You can also email us at Heresy and Hearsay, or you can give us a call at 980-858-2243, and we'd love to hear from you, hear about your opinions or your thoughts, either through our Twitter or email or the phone call. We do have a Patreon now, and that is patreon.com/heresy and hearsay. It's simple. It's $2. We're not asking. There's no other price points. You can give more, of course, or give a dollar, but the $2 is very simple. You become a member of the congregation. You help us out, and we keep on trying to preach the good word
and get better at it. I got a new toy for my birthday early. We're gonna have bumpers and music and things eventually. I promise.
And we do have a theme song that we will be incorporating. And before we do that, I do want to thank David Childers, who is a local artist who's done amazing work, and he gave us permission to use one of his songs. And I know September is working on getting us our theme song taken care of.
Trying.
I know.
He's
I know.
in Florida, so. Well, thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for. It's been a great show, and next week, hopefully, we'll have topics that you'll be interested in listening to. And thank you for listening to us ramble. And bless your hearts.
Cool. So I didn't even get into it. I was gonna at some point, and my head started hurting about like mainstream people and what they perceive. And I mean, it is really important, everything. I think it's hard to speak because we're people of privilege, but we also are so out of the norm. Like I've got, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 trans friends. Like, I don't think that's normal, like normal people's experience, right? And the level of exposure to the community that we have, and it's interesting to think about.
It's like I have a lot of friends who are gay, a lot of friends who are I have a couple of people I know that are trans. I know a lot of bisexual people. I know a lot of people that are poly as well. So.
Oh, speaking of which, our next topic on grills, we're doing ethical non-monogamy next week.
Ethical
non-monogamy, yeah.
Okay. So different polyamory?
Swinging, polyamory, yeah, all different Different relationship,
Okay.
non-monogamy, ethical sluthood is another thing that'll probably come up because I think Jen's reading The Ethical Slut right now. Rob's reading more than two. I have a pile of books, but it'll be a very interesting discussion.
It will be. And we can eventually tackle that over here in the biblical sense. That'll be a fun topic.
Whoa. Lord, that's crazy in the Bible.
It's like, look, it's like I really don't have a lot to say on it. You like really can't say too much on it Bible wise because you look at Solomon. That's all I have to say on that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah.
All right. Well, I guess we'll get going. I'm gonna end the stream first.